Someone asks an innocent-sounding question, but you feel pressure to answer immediately. Something in the way they ask makes you uneasy, like they're guiding you toward a conclusion you're not ready to accept. Smart manipulators rarely give direct orders. Instead, they frame subtle questions, applying psychological pressure, making you deliver the very answer they already wanted. The danger is that it feels like your own decision, when in reality you're being pulled like a puppet on invisible strings. I don't say this to make you suspicious of every question you hear. The point is to help you recognize when a question carries hidden intent, when it's designed to control, not to understand. Epictetus warned, "No one can manipulate you without your own participation." Today, I'll reveal 5 common questions manipulators use to bend your thoughts and shape your actions. The third is especially dangerous because it triggers deep guilt and forces you to surrender, even when you know you're right. Once you learn these patterns, you'll spot manipulation from a distance. You'll hold your ground wisely, without needing to argue or over-explain. If you want to protect your mind from these subtle attacks and learn how to maintain unshakable calm, subscribe to Stoic Training. Together, we'll build true inner strength. Let's begin. Question number 1. Don't you think? The most dangerous questions are the ones that pretend to give you a choice. When someone starts a question with, "Don't you think?" they're not actually interested in your opinion. They're imposing their viewpoint under the guise of democratic discussion. This question appears sophisticated because it seems to be asking for your input, but it's actually designed to pressure you into agreeing with them. They present their view as the obvious, reasonable choice that any sensible person would accept. By framing the conversation this way, they make disagreement seem unreasonable or stubborn. I remember a situation at work from a few years ago. A colleague approached me with a friendly smile and said, "Don't you think it would be better if you handled the Peterson presentation instead of letting Mark do it? I mean, he's clearly not ready for something this important, and the client relationship is too valuable to risk." At first, this sounded like a sincere consultation. She seemed to be asking for my opinion about who should handle the presentation. But when I thought about it more carefully, I realized she wasn't interested in my genuine opinion at all. She had already reached her conclusion. Mark wasn't capable, and I should replace him. And now she was trying to get me to agree with that assessment. The structure of the question revealed the real intent. She didn't say, "What do you think about Mark's readiness for this presentation?" A genuinely open question. Instead, she embedded her judgment, "He's clearly not ready," within the question and asked me to confirm it. What's subtle here is that she made disagreement socially difficult. If I said, "No, I don't think that," I would appear to be defending someone incompetent or risking an important client relationship. She had framed the conversation in a way that agreement seemed like the only reasonable option. This is the essence of opinion forcing. They're not seeking your genuine opinion, they're manufacturing consent. By framing their view as a question, they make disagreement appear unreasonable or contrary. They want you to feel like you're arriving at their conclusion independently rather than having it imposed on you. The psychological manipulation is sophisticated. They're exploiting our natural tendency to want to appear reasonable and cooperative. Most people don't want to seem difficult or contrary, so when presented with what appears to be a reasonable question, we tend to go along with the implied answer. Marcus Aurelius taught that very little is needed to make a happy life, and it all lies within yourself, in your way of thinking. Don't let others dictate how you should think by framing false choices for you. Your thoughts and opinions are your own sovereign territory. The way to recognize and respond to this tactic is straightforward. When you hear "don't you think?" pause and ask yourself, am I genuinely being asked for my opinion, Or am I being led to a predetermined conclusion? Pay attention to whether they've embedded assumptions or judgments within the question. An effective response might be, "That's an interesting perspective. I'd like to think about this more carefully. What specific concerns do you have?" This forces them to state their position clearly rather than hiding it behind an innocent-seeming question. Notice how often people use this phrase to avoid directly stating their controversial opinions. They want all the benefits of persuading you without taking responsibility for actually having a position. It's intellectual cowardice disguised as collaborative discussion. The key is recognizing that genuine questions seek information or perspective. Manipulative questions seek compliance. When someone truly wants your opinion, they ask in a way that makes all answers equally acceptable. When someone wants to control your opinion, they ask in a way that makes only one answer seem reasonable. But opinion forcing is just one subtle tactic. Some manipulators prefer a more direct approach. They don't try to get your agreement. They just want to make you feel bad about your choices. Question number 2. Why would you? Some questions aren't seeking answers. They're delivering verdicts. When someone asks, "Why would you?" followed by describing your choice or action, they're not trying to understand your reasoning. They're implying that your reasoning is fundamentally flawed, and they're giving you an opportunity to recognize your mistake. This question appears to seek understanding, but actually contains a hidden judgment. The tone, the timing, and the context all signal disapproval, even though the words themselves seem neutral. It's criticism wrapped in the package of curiosity, which makes it harder to defend against because you can't quite put your finger on what's wrong with it. I experienced this manipulation firsthand when I decided to change career directions several years ago. I had been working in corporate finance for over a decade, and while the job was stable and well-paying, I felt increasingly unfulfilled. After months of careful consideration, I decided to transition into consulting, which would give me more variety and the chance to work with different companies. When I shared this decision with my family, most were supportive, but one relative had a different reaction. During a family dinner, she looked at me with what seemed like genuine concern and asked, "Why would you leave such a stable job to pursue something so uncertain? I mean, you have a mortgage, responsibilities. Why would you take such a risk at this stage in your life?" The question wasn't about understanding my motivation. It was about expressing disapproval while maintaining plausible deniability. She could always claim she was just trying to understand, just being concerned, just asking questions. But the real message was clear. "I think you're making a terrible mistake, but I'll let you figure that out through my questioning." What makes this particularly insidious is how it puts you in a defensive position. You find yourself justifying decisions you've already made, explaining reasoning you've already worked through. The questioner gets to play the role of the concerned, rational person while making you feel like someone who acts impulsively or without proper consideration. The psychological impact is significant. When someone questions your choices this way repeatedly, you start to doubt your own judgment. You begin to internalize their skepticism and wonder if maybe you really are being reckless or naive. They're not just questioning your decision, they're questioning your competence to make decisions. Seneca wrote, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more, who is poor." Don't let others make you feel poor in judgment by constantly questioning the validity of your choices. Your decisions are based on information and values they may not fully understand or share. The key difference between genuine curiosity and disguised judgment lies in the aftermath. When someone is genuinely curious about your reasoning, they listen to your explanation and either understand your perspective or ask follow-up questions that help them understand better. When someone is delivering judgment disguised as curiosity, they respond to your explanation with more skeptical questions or subtle expressions of doubt. An effective way to handle this is to respond with, I'm happy to explain my reasoning if you're genuinely curious, but I sense some concern in your question. What specifically worries you about this decision? This exposes whether they want to understand or just want to express disapproval. This response is powerful because it acknowledges their concern while calling out the hidden judgment. If they're genuinely worried, they'll appreciate the opportunity to express their concerns directly. If they're just being manipulative, they'll usually back down or become defensive about being called out. The goal isn't to shut down all questioning of your decisions. Sometimes people do have legitimate concerns worth considering. The goal is to distinguish between questions that seek to understand and questions that seek to undermine. One comes from a place of respect and care, the other comes from a place of judgment and control. This exposes whether they want to understand or just want to judge. But judgment questions, while stinging, pale in comparison to our third manipulation tactic, which cuts directly into your emotions and sense of moral responsibility. Question number 3. Don't you care about? The cruelest questions are the ones that question your character. When someone asks, "Don't you care about?" they're not inquiring about your feelings or priorities. They're implying that if you don't do what they want, you lack basic human decency, compassion, or moral responsibility. It's emotional blackmail disguised as a reasonable inquiry about your values. This question is devastating because it attacks something fundamental, your sense of being a good person. It suggests that your actions or lack of actions reveal a character flaw so serious that it calls into question your basic humanity. The manipulation works by making you feel that you must prove your goodness by complying with their request. I learned to recognize this pattern through painful personal experience with my own mother. Throughout my adult life, whenever I couldn't attend every family gathering due to work commitments, travel, or simply needing personal time, she would deploy this weapon with surgical precision. Don't you care about family anymore? The question was never about my feelings toward family. I obviously cared deeply about my relatives, had maintained close relationships with them, and made significant efforts to stay connected despite a demanding career. But my mother wasn't asking about my feelings. She was weaponizing my love for family against me to change my behavior. What made this particularly painful was how it reframed every conversation. Instead of discussing practical scheduling challenges or finding compromise solutions, I found myself defending my character. I would explain how much I loved everyone, how important family was to me, how difficult it was to balance everything. I was forced into the position of proving I was a good person rather than simply explaining why I couldn't attend a particular event. The genius of this manipulation is how it makes reasonable boundaries seem selfish and cruel. When you're asked, "Don't you care about your family?" saying, "I do care, but I can't make it this time," sounds hollow and defensive. The question implies that caring people don't have scheduling conflicts, don't need personal time, don't have competing priorities. It makes normal human limitations seem like moral failures. This tactic works by exploiting your deepest values against you. They identify what you care about most: family, friendship, justice, helping others, and then suggest that your failure to comply with their wishes proves you don't really care about these things. It's a form of emotional hostage-taking where your own values become the ransom demand. The psychological damage extends beyond the immediate situation. When people repeatedly question whether you care about important things, you start to doubt yourself. You begin to wonder if maybe you really are selfish, if maybe your priorities really are wrong, if maybe you really don't care enough about the things that should matter most. Epictetus taught us, "No one can hurt you without your permission." Guilt is permission you can choose not to grant. When someone questions whether you care about something important to you, they're asking for permission to make you feel guilty about being human, about having limitations, about making choices they don't agree with. The key to defending against this manipulation is recognizing that caring about something doesn't mean sacrificing everything else for it. You can care deeply about family while still having work obligations. You can care about helping others while still maintaining personal boundaries. You can care about important causes while still taking care of your own needs. A powerful response to this manipulation is to separate the question about your values from the demand for specific action. Of course, I care about family. I'm curious why you're questioning that. What specific outcome are you hoping for here? This acknowledges your values while redirecting the conversation to their actual request rather than your character. This response is effective because it refuses to accept the false premise that caring must equal compliance. It demonstrates that you understand the difference between having values and being manipulated through those values. It also forces them to make their request directly rather than hiding it behind moral questioning. The goal isn't to become defensive about your care and concern for important things. The goal is to recognize when someone is using your care against you as a weapon. True concern for others doesn't require you to prove your goodness through compliance. Real relationships don't demand that you sacrifice your well-being to demonstrate your love. This redirects the conversation from defending your character to discussing their actual request. But guilt activation is painful enough when it's about present situations. Some manipulators prefer to attack your confidence about the future by making you afraid of taking any action at all. Question number 4. What if? The most paralyzing questions are the ones that paint disaster scenarios. When someone repeatedly asks, "What if?" followed by increasingly catastrophic possibilities, they're not helping you plan for challenges. They're systematically implanting fears to prevent you from taking action. It's analysis paralysis disguised as prudent planning. This question appears helpful and thoughtful. After all, considering potential problems is part of good decision-making, right? But there's a crucial difference between realistic risk assessment and fear implantation. One helps you prepare, the other overwhelms you with anxiety until you're too paralyzed to move forward. The manipulation works by flooding your mind with worst-case scenarios until you can't see anything else. Instead of helping you weigh risks and benefits rationally, they create an emotional state where every possibility seems catastrophic and any action feels dangerous. They turn your natural caution into debilitating fear. I encountered this manipulation when I was considering starting my own consulting business. After years of working for others, I had developed expertise that clients valued, built a strong network, and saved enough money to support myself during the transition period. I had done my research, created a business plan, and felt genuinely excited about the opportunity. But when I shared my plans with a colleague, instead of encouragement or practical advice, I received a barrage of what-if questions that grew progressively more alarming. What if the market crashes right after you start? What if your first few clients don't pay their bills? What if you can't find enough work to cover your expenses? What if you get sick and can't work? What if your main contact at your biggest potential client leaves the company? What if the industry changes and your expertise becomes obsolete? Each question planted a new seed of fear. I found myself lying awake at night, my mind racing through increasingly unlikely disaster scenarios. What had started as excitement and confidence gradually transformed into anxiety and doubt. I began second-guessing decisions I had already made, questioning research I had already completed, and imagining problems that had never occurred to me before. The colleague wasn't helping me prepare for real challenges. He was overwhelming me with fears to prevent action. The difference became clear when I compared his approach to genuinely helpful advice I received from a successful entrepreneur friend. She asked about my financial runway, my client pipeline, and my contingency plans. She helped me think through realistic challenges and practical solutions. Her questions empowered me to act more wisely. His questions paralyzed me with fear. What makes fear implantation so effective is how it exploits our brain's natural negativity bias. We're wired to pay more attention to potential threats than potential opportunities, which helped our ancestors survive but can sabotage modern decision-making. When someone systematically presents worst-case scenarios, our brain treats each one as a serious threat, requiring careful consideration. The psychological impact compounds over time. Each what-if question adds another layer of anxiety, another reason to delay, another excuse to avoid risk. Eventually, you're not making decisions based on realistic probability assessments. You're making decisions based on fear of low-probability catastrophes. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Today I escaped anxiety." Or no, I discarded it because it was within me, in my own perceptions, not outside. The fears implanted by others become real only when we accept them as our own perceptions. We have the power to examine these fears rationally rather than being overwhelmed by them. The key to defending against fear implantation is distinguishing between helpful risk assessment and paralyzing fear-mongering. Helpful questions focus on realistic challenges and practical solutions. Fear implantation focuses on unlikely disasters and overwhelming scenarios. An effective response acknowledges legitimate concerns while redirecting toward solutions. I appreciate your concern about risks. I've considered the main ones and have plans for them. What specific support or insights are you offering? This separates genuine helpfulness from fear-mongering. This response works because it demonstrates that you've already done your due diligence while calling out whether they're actually trying to help or just trying to scare you. People who genuinely want to help will offer practical advice or support. People who just want to implant fear will usually back down when pressed for actual assistance. The goal isn't to ignore all risks or dismiss all concerns. The goal is to make decisions based on realistic assessment rather than implanted fears. You can acknowledge potential challenges without being paralyzed by unlikely catastrophes. You can be prudent without being paranoid. This separates genuine concern from fear-mongering. But while fear implantation attacks your courage to act, our final manipulation tactic attacks something even more fundamental: your confidence in your own abilities and judgment. Question number 5. Are you sure you're... The most insidious questions are the ones that make you doubt your own abilities. When someone asks, "Are you sure you're..." followed by questioning your readiness, capability, or qualifications, they're not checking on your preparation. They're subtly suggesting that you might not be competent enough for the task at hand. It's a surgical strike against your self-confidence disguised as concerned inquiry. This question is particularly damaging because it attacks your sense of competence right when you need confidence most. It plants seeds of self-doubt about your abilities and judgment at precisely the moment when believing in yourself is crucial for success. The timing is never accidental. It always comes when you're about to take on something important or challenging. The manipulation works by making you question not just your preparation, but your fundamental capability. It shifts your focus from "Am I ready?" to "Am I good enough?" The first question can be answered with practical preparation. The second creates existential doubt that's much harder to resolve. I experienced this manipulation before what should have been a career-defining presentation. I had been selected to present our company's new strategic initiative to a board of directors that included several industry leaders. It was a huge opportunity, and I had spent weeks preparing. I knew the material inside and out, had anticipated likely questions, and felt genuinely confident about the presentation. The morning of the presentation, a colleague approached me in the hallway. With what seemed like genuine concern, she said, "Are you sure you're ready for this?" I mean, it's a pretty sophisticated audience, and they can be quite critical of anyone who isn't completely on top of their game. Are you sure you've thought through all the technical aspects they might ask about? I had been feeling confident and prepared, but suddenly I was second-guessing everything. Had I really covered all the technical details? Was I sophisticated enough for this audience? Did I truly understand the implications of every aspect of the strategy? Her questions didn't point to specific gaps in my preparation. They just made me doubt whether I was qualified to be in that room at all. What made this particularly insidious was how reasonable her concerns sounded. She wasn't saying I was incompetent, she was just questioning whether I was ready. But the psychological impact was devastating. Instead of walking into that presentation with confidence in my preparation and expertise, I walked in feeling like an imposter who might be exposed at any moment. The colleague wasn't genuinely concerned about my success. She was undermining my confidence. The difference became clear later when I compared her approach to how a supportive mentor had helped me prepare for previous presentations. He would ask specific questions. Have you practiced the section about implementation timeline? What's your backup plan if they challenge the budget assumptions? His questions helped me prepare better. Her questions just made me doubt myself. Competence undermining works by exploiting the gap between confidence and arrogance. Most competent people have some awareness of what they don't know, some humility about their limitations. Manipulators exploit this healthy self-awareness by magnifying it into debilitating self-doubt. The psychological mechanism is subtle but powerful. By questioning your readiness rather than attacking your competence directly, they make you do the work of undermining yourself. You start mentally reviewing everything you might have missed, every skill you might lack, every way you might fail. They don't have to convince you that you're not good enough. They just have to plant the question and let your own mind do the rest. Seneca taught us, "It is likely that some troubles will befall us, but it is not a present fact." How often has the unexpected happened? How often has the expected never come to pass? The failures and inadequacies that manipulators make us imagine are not present facts. They're anxious projections that may never materialize. The key to defending against competence undermining is recognizing the difference between helpful preparation questions and confidence-destroying doubt. Helpful questions focus on specific areas where you can improve your readiness. Competence undermining focuses on general adequacy and creates vague anxiety about your overall capability. An effective response demonstrates confidence while inviting specific feedback. I'm as prepared as I need to be for this situation. Is there something specific you think I should address, or are you just expressing general concern? This forces them to either provide useful information or admit they're just trying to undermine your confidence. This response works because it refuses to accept the premise that your competence is questionable while still remaining open to legitimate feedback. It demonstrates self-assurance without arrogance and calls out whether they're actually trying to help or just trying to shake your confidence. People who genuinely want to help will either point to specific areas for improvement or acknowledge that you seem well prepared. People who just want to undermine you will usually back down when pressed for specifics because they don't actually have constructive feedback to offer. When you recognize these patterns across all 5 questions, you begin to see how manipulation works at the deepest level. It's not about controlling your actions directly. It's about controlling the mental and emotional state from which you make decisions, and that's where Stoic wisdom becomes your most powerful defense. Your mind is your final fortress. When you learn to recognize these manipulative patterns, you become truly unshakable, not because nothing can touch you, but because you choose what deserves your emotional energy. If this video helped you recognize manipulation in your own life, please like it to help others build this same awareness. Subscribe to Stoic Training for more practical wisdom that protects your peace of mind. Guard your thoughts wisely. They determine everything else.